So, as someone is uh, digging into this and says, I want to get involved. What does the potential investor, what do they need to have already figured out? How much cash do they need? Do they need good credit? What is their situation?
Yeah, so typically they're trying to they already come in with the idea of, hey, I'm going to use a bit of cash and I'm going to go get some sort of leverage financing.
Hmm.
But they typically don't know what house they're looking at. Well, I'll say if a novice doesn't know. An experienced person will say, this is my cap rate. This is what I'm trying to go for.
Yep.
Um, so what we'll do is we'll sit down. They want to see our underwriting, so we'll send them pro formas on hypothetical like A, B, C type homes
Hmm.
with different financing strategy, different rates, so they can create an account. We have like sample properties on our site with a down payment calculator and an interest rate calculator, so they can kind of play with that.
Hmm.
And once we kind of finalize that, they want to know is like, am I shopping for financing or are you shopping for financing? And we do help with the financing part, but specifically just the DSCR loans is sort
Yep.
of our specialty. But if you want to use your personal credit, then we always say go talk to your primary bank to see if there's any
Oh,
investment products that they might offer. And then let's call it the ones with an existing portfolio. They
yep.
might call BYOP, bring your own portfolio. We
Huh.
might underwrite that for them and say, hey, like you have some equity to tap here. Do you
Yep.
want us to help refi that, or do you want us to manage it? So a bit of both. So we do have a lot of clients that have just brought their portfolio and said, you take it, grow it, please.
That's interesting because I hadn't thought about that use case. So I work with a fair amount of investors that have built anywhere from 10 to 50 single family units, and their operations have kind of come to their limits. Like they have to decide if they want to like build their own internal property management company because it's beyond just their own capacity to manage anymore.
Yeah.
And it sounds like that's a potential uh, avatar for you guys as well.
Yeah, we actually get that like some family offices as well. Like, hey, well, like your insurance rates are actually cheaper than our rates. So, what could we do if we piggyback to your master policy?
Right.
So we do have like this BYOP product where we can just take on the asset management of it all, and all of a sudden, all your accounting is sort of in one place.
And I'm in Little Rock, and you mentioned that you might have operations in Little Rock. We might need to talk because I have a
Yeah.
portfolio of about 40 units, and I would say my property management is okay, but it's not just like I would still refer people to them because they're honest and they pay attention, but
Hmm.
they're not probably getting the best return out of my portfolio as possible.
Okay. Okay.
But I'm running a busy business, right? So I have other
Yeah.
things that I'm working on, and being a property manager and an asset manager of my property manager is not my most exciting thing to do.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I'd be happy to kind of look at that. We're actually closing a Little Rock deal in like 2 weeks.
Oh, really? Okay, we
Yeah. I've
should
been
talk. Yeah.
looking for looking for an excuse to get out there. It's a brand new build too.
Okay, yeah, off camera here, we might put our heads together and figure out what if we can do some business. Um, and so, let's say in that situation, or even somebody who's new, they've exhausted, or I would say new, but they've done some properties already, and they've already probably used their conventional financing. They probably their debt to income
Mhm.
ratio, or they just hit the limit. They've hit their 10, whatever the rules are now. And then you now have some referred DSCR loans, or
Exactly.
businesses that you like to work with. So
Yeah.
for those listening, the DSCR, the debt service coverage ratio, platform or our product suddenly became like a product that made sense when the interest rates went up.
Yeah.
Can you talk to the audience here about like what happened and why suddenly are people hearing about DSCR loans?
Yeah, I think it's what makes the US rental market such a prime investment product because of this like loan vehicle.
Yeah.
So the way I always say it underwrites the house, not the borrower. It looks at the house as a business. Essentially does the same practice that we do. They're gonna see, can the income exceed all your hard costs, PM, insurance, taxes, um, utilities, a couple of those other hard costs, and then they'll underwrite your house and loan to you several times a year, if you can pick some winners. And typical terms are 30-year fixed with minimal to low prepayment penalties, and all those things are kind of negotiable. You know, you can kind of get remove your prepayment penalties if you take a slight interest rate hike or some sort of buy down. But there are so many of these lenders and they're non-recourse. So very, very investor friendly, especially if you're looking to aggressively scale your portfolio.
Yeah, I agree. And uh, I mean, right when interest rates started going up, the people who run these products like saw it and they went marketing like crazy. And I don't know how many I've refinanced with a DSCR loan product. And overall, I would say I was pretty pleased with it. I'm curious what y'all's take on it is as far as the loan process. I found them to be not as onerous as doing a conventional loan, but a little bit more
Yeah.
difficult than doing a local commercial loan. Like I found doing local commercial loans with a local bank just to be so effortless, so easy
Mm.
compared to a DSCR. They kind of fit in the middle. Is that something y'all have seen as well?
Yeah, like I feel like it's so lender specific.
Yeah.
Some of these large lenders, it's a process. But like some of these mid to low size, like we've run the gamut. Like I've been down to the wire on some of them because they just started going so deep on entity documents and everything.
Right.
So yeah, it's hit or miss.
Okay.
So I feel like they get you at the very beginning because it's like almost 24 hours or 48 hours to like a verbal, yeah, we can do this. And then they hit you with the diligence. And sometimes that could be quite daunting. Yeah.
Yeah. So I would think that that would be a good product to use as a refinance until you kind of figure out their process before you would use them for a purchase.
Yeah.
Because I tried to use them for a purchase and I mean, they killed the deal. They just were just,
Mm,
I didn't know their processes and I was learning it. And so I just decided to say, okay, I kind of feel like this can work, but like I just didn't fit the model for that kind of
yeah.
aggressive purchase timeline that I put out there, right? Because I'm only
Yeah.
marketing for deals.
Yeah, that's a funny point because now that you actually say that, we have like this running list of questions every time we onboard a lender, and it's like 50 questions. Like, what do you do with this? Do you have escrows here? What entity
Yeah,
documents do you need? Where do you
right,
need the signature signed? Does it need to be a physical wet signature, digital
right.
signature? Like, it's everybody has their own sort of like yes and no's.
hmm Okay, so I'm also curious, where are you guys or how are you guys sourcing your deals? It sounds like you're actually bringing deals to your investors and then they do their own due diligence to see if it makes sense. But
Yeah,
I think the question is like, where are you sourcing these things?
yeah. So we do all the MLS ones for sure, and
Uh-huh.
then we each area, depending on like our property. Well, most of our property management partners also have large networks and dispositions that they want to do for their clients. Because
Yep.
again, the PMs that we're working with, they work for like hedge funds and REITs, and they're
Yep.
cycling 20% of their portfolio on like a rolling 5-year basis. So there's a lot of
Right.
stuff to be dipping in there, and then wholesale networks, wholesalers that we find in that area, we'll work with them as well. So right now, finding more wholesale deals that
Yep.
pencil versus the ones that are on market.
That's interesting. I used to do a lot of wholesaling, and I found it to be a little bit difficult to fit inside the box of a turnkey buyer's. I mean, they ended up being the best buyers if you could ever agree on how to deal with it. But in a wholesale scenario, we have a contract that I'm obligated to close on, and and then sometimes the timing on that doesn't line up with
Yeah.
the turnkey provider, for lack of better terms, process. How do
Yeah.
y'all manage that dynamic?
Yeah, so it depends on the client's requirements. So if there is a financing required, then we probably wouldn't like we would just strictly stick to the on market.
I see.
And then we have a lot of clients that kind of do cash out refi, so they can kind of come in all cash and then we'll say refi later. So those are the ones where we'll kind of go in there and say, hey, like let's go to we can now open the wholesale network as well because they're all cash sort of sales, and
Yeah.
having to do like a triple assignment is kind of crazy.
Yeah. Well, and it makes a lot of sense because I've been on both sides of this. Is when you're the wholesaler, it's you can't just tie up a property for 3 months and
Yeah,
letting 5 or 10 people walk through the property every time that they are interested and they back out at the last minute because their financing fell through. Like those transactions really need to be cash or cash equivalent, where a decision maker can look at the property and say, "I'm going to buy it," and there's really no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I'm buying it.
Yeah. And we're kind of preemptive too on our wholesalers. Like let them know it's like, hey, we've got another client that's going to be coming through the pipe.
Yeah.
Here's their buy box. So just heads up, if you start searching, I need a bigger window of time.
Yeah.
So we kind of work both ways. We work pretty closely with all of our deal sources.
That makes a lot of sense because as a wholesaler, when I did the best is when I found some local or I found turnkey buyers that were looking for inventory in my local
Hmm.
market of Little Rock. And this would apply really anywhere, but that's just where I would happen to be. And when they decided that they were going to buy there, my business took off because I suddenly had a buyer that had major purchasing power,
Right.
and I just had to find their buy box. And then I could just go and get contracts and pretty much just like call them up and say, hey, you know, you're first. Like
Yeah.
you have first dibs, and
Yeah.
the price is not negotiable, but you have first dibs.
Yeah. Yeah. And it makes it's so much easier when you've got that sort of steady deal flow and that
Yeah,
like trusted partner too.
yeah.
Because then
And once we did
they
more, yeah,
understand the math. Yeah.
yeah, it really does. And once you did more and more, then and they would say yes or no very quickly. And within
Yeah.
a couple of days, I would know if I had that contract sold, or I needed to go market it, or I needed to find financing for myself to buy it.
Right. Yep.
Yeah, interesting. Well, yeah, I would be interested to talk to you about that aspect as well because I have more and more people coming to me with deals. It's more than I can
Oh,
buy.
okay.
So yeah.
Yeah, we're always open to speak to more wholesalers,
Okay.
always.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool. All right. So that's how you source the deals. There's financing involved. How are you creating the rehab and managing the boots on the ground? So for example, Little Rock or Memphis or Kansas City, and someone's interested in those markets, they want to buy it there, but they don't have people there. How do y'all make sure you're solving that for that problem? You
Yeah.
know, the California buyer that's buying in Memphis.
Yeah. So, we lean a lot on our property management partners. Again, they've got, tens of thousands of doors in a particular area. So they've got a good amount of general contractor networks, either, like that are constantly jumping at their bids. And
Hmm.
then, some of them do have like a core skeleton crew of like full-time construction teams, right? So
Okay.
that really helps us in terms of like getting the project done. So during our inspection period, their contractor is actually going out there quoting and then soft earmarking the start date um, for that quote so that we know that they're ready to go and they've kind of committed. And again, we're kind of piggybacking their sort of power with the market in those local areas.
That makes sense. And what's different from your model than the traditional turnkey model is you're actually getting approval or you're somehow communicating with the owner of like, this is the budget that we've come up with. This is the fit and finish we're looking for in the property. And the owner is actually the one paying for it somehow, right?
Yeah, so we take that. So whatever's on that quote is typically grabbed during the closing and escrow.
Yep.
Yeah, and then we're the ones kind of calibrating, saying, hey, these are the line items we want to hit this rent rate.
Yep.
Or, if we don't put those in, we could go in at a lower rent rate.
Hmm. I think it's really cool because I feel like from a potential investor looking to buy rental properties, turnkey certainly provides an interesting solution, but you're not buying these properties at a discount. You're buying them at the premium market rate, and
Yeah.
I mean you're lucky to get a 6 or 7% cap rate, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's why we kind of said like we got to get as much value for our clients as possible.
Yeah,
And transparently, that looks better for us, right? Like if next, as we go out and refinance on their behalf and look, the appraisal came up higher, that looks better on us, right?
yeah, and so that's all the more reason if you're sourcing the deals for me, and I'm basically qualifying for the loan, but then you're effectively, well, and I'm bringing some cash probably, right? So I'm bringing
Yeah.
some cash, I'm qualifying for the loan, and you guys are doing your thing, and then you're freeing up financing and getting my money back.
Yeah.
I was like, how can we do more, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And like
Yeah,
our goal is to get the max of on the refi so we can get you into more units, right? So
sure.
the whole model kind of works in your favor.
Now, do you guys only do single family, or will you do like a duplex or a quadplex too?
Yeah, we'll do those, but like our system will only be able to search like existing listings, both on market, off market. we don't really have our technology layer doesn't have the ability to say, here's a house. What would it look like if we converted it to a duplex? So
Hmm.
that we can't do on scale. I mean, we could technically do that on a human level, but that would be a bottleneck. But if
Sure.
somebody comes to us and says, I'm looking for existing duplex, triplex, or quad, then yeah, we can search existing on market deals for those.
Okay. Yeah. Because that's kind of the we'll maybe uh, put a pin in the single family versus multifamily conversation because I want to get to that because I think it's an interesting conversation. But I'm in the place where, like another single family property doesn't really change my life.
Mhm.
Whereas if I'm trying to scale up, I'm looking at multifamily, but I just love the loan products that are available for the 1 to 4 units. So
Yeah,
I find that the best bang for the buck is finding those four plexes.
yeah,
I love them. I mean, they're not everywhere, but when you find them, I mean, you're the same amount of effort for me is getting me 4 units when I'm also qualifying for that same loan product. Do y'all
yeah,
agree with that philosophy?
yeah. Like I always think that like single family is a great sort of dip your toe entry point.
Totally.
Right. And then as you kind of build your spend and your risk tolerance, and yeah, going up and getting the multi-unit, because on a per unit basis, yes, multifamily is more affordable, but like typically the whole building as a whole without having to take outside money is a higher sort of entry point.
For
Again,
sure.
market specific.
For sure.
Um, but yeah, like we do like multi, and actually our head of investments comes from one of the largest sort of multifamily private equity firms. So that's actually his bread and butter,
I
is
see.
multifamily. But I think what we're trying to do is share is try to level the playing ground in terms of diversification with single
Yeah.
family.